The grand ballroom of the Riverside Manor sparkled under 1,000 crystal chandeliers, each one casting dancing shadows across marble floors that had witnessed 50 years of celebrations. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. Madison Chen's wedding day, the culmination of 18 months of meticulous planning and a guest list that read like a who's who of the city's elite. The ceremony was scheduled to begin at 6:30 p.m., and by 6:15, every velvet-cushioned seat was filled with women in designer gowns and men in tailored tuxedos. Madison stood before an ornate mirror in the bridal suite, her reflection a vision in ivory silk that had cost more than most people's cars. Her mother fussed with the cathedral-length veil, while her bridesmaids, all dressed in coordinated blush pink, sipped champagne and admired their perfectly manicured nails. Everything was going exactly according to plan until Madison's cousin Ashley burst through the door, her face flushed with barely contained gossip. "You will not believe who just walked in downstairs," Ashley hissed, her eyes wide with scandalized delight. "Some woman in the most ridiculous outfit I've ever seen. She looks like she got dressed in a thrift store dumpster." Madison's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the flash of annoyance that crossed her face. This was her day, her moment, and nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to diminish it. "Well?" she demanded, setting down her bouquet of white roses. "Who is it?" Ashley pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Within seconds, the bridal party had gathered around, their collective gasp filling the suite. On the screen was a photograph of a woman standing uncertainly near the entrance, wearing a faded floral dress that had clearly seen better days, paired with worn canvas shoes and a cardigan that was unraveling at the sleeves. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she clutched a small wrapped package in trembling hands. "Is that supposed to be a wedding gift?" One bridesmaid snickered. "It looks like she wrapped it in newspaper." Madison's jaw tightened. She recognized that face. Sarah Morrison, a girl she'd known briefly in college, someone from her past she'd deliberately left behind when she'd climbed the social ladder. They'd been roommates for exactly one semester before Madison had requested a transfer. Unable to bear the embarrassment of Sarah's second-hand clothes and scholarship student desperation. "I didn't invite her," Madison said coldly. Security should have stopped her at the door. But Ashley was already heading downstairs, phone in hand, ready to document whatever drama was about to unfold. Madison hesitated for only a moment before following, her bridesmaids trailing behind like a perfumed parade of judgment. The ballroom had gone quiet when Madison descended the curved staircase, her wedding dress rustling with each deliberate step. 200 faces turned toward her, then toward Sarah, who stood frozen near the guest book table. The woman looked even more out of place up close, her dress clearly home-mended in several places, her face pale and drawn. "Sarah Morrison," Madison's voice rang out across the hushed space, each word dripping with barely veiled contempt. "I'm surprised you found your way here. This is a private event, by invitation only." Sarah's fingers tightened around her package. I know I wasn't invited, Madison. "I tried calling, but your numbers changed. I tried emailing, but you decided to crash my wedding anyway?" Madison interrupted, her voice rising. "In that outfit? Did you honestly think you belonged here?" A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the crowd. Several guests had their phones out now, recording the confrontation. Sarah's face flushed crimson, but she stood her ground. "Madison, please. I just need 5 minutes. It's about you being jealous." Madison cut her off again, warming to her audience now. "It's about you never being able to move past your circumstances, never making anything of yourself. Look at you. You're still wearing clothes from a decade ago, still barely scraping by, and you thought you could just walk into my wedding and what? Remind me of where I came from?" The silence in the ballroom had become oppressive. Even Ashley looked uncertain now, her phone lowering slightly. But Madison was on a roll. Years of buried insecurity manifesting as cruelty. "This dress you're mocking?" Madison gestured dramatically at Sarah's outfit. "This is the dress I wore to my mother's funeral. I wore it because it was her favorite. I wore it because 3 days ago I buried the woman who raised me alone, who worked 3 jobs so I could go to college, who—" Sarah's voice broke, tears streaming down her face now. who made me promise on her deathbed that I would find you, that I would give you this. She held up the newspaper-wrapped package, her hands shaking violently. Because despite everything, despite you abandoning her when she got sick, despite you being too embarrassed to visit her in the hospice, she never stopped loving you. She never stopped being proud of you. The collective gasp that went through the room was audible. Madison's face had gone from flushed to ashen. What are you talking about? My mother is your mother. Sarah's voice was quiet now, but somehow more powerful. Was my mother too. Our mother. I'm your half-sister, Madison. The daughter she had when she was 17. The one she gave up for adoption but found again 10 years ago. The one who sat beside her hospital bed for 6 months while you were too busy planning this wedding to return her calls. The package slipped from Madison's nerveless fingers, hitting the marble floor with a soft thud. Inside the newspaper wrapping, visible now through a tear, was a photograph in a simple frame. 2 little girls, one Madison herself at age 5, and a baby. On the back, visible through the glass, were words in her mother's handwriting, "My 2 hearts, together at last." Sarah bent down, picked up the frame, and set it gently on the gift table. She wanted you to have this. She wanted you to know that she forgave you, that she loved you, that she understood why you stopped calling. Her voice broke again. I promised her I'd give it to you today because she knew you wouldn't have come if you'd known she was dying. She knew you were ashamed of where you came from, ashamed of her. The silence that followed was absolute. 200 guests sat frozen, witnesses to the unraveling of Madison's carefully constructed facade. Her bridesmaids had backed away, their faces reflecting shock and discomfort. Even her groom, standing forgotten at the altar, looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. Madison's legs gave out, and she sank onto the bottom step of the staircase, her expensive dress pooling around her like a deflated cloud. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know she was sick. I thought she was just trying to control my life, trying to make me feel guilty about... She couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing what little makeup she wore. She left letters, one for every birthday you'll have for the next 20 years. She spent her last good weeks writing them, telling you stories, giving you advice, saying all the things she never got to say. She pulled a thick envelope from her cardigan pocket and held it out. This one was supposed to be for today, your wedding day. Madison looked at the envelope as if it were a living thing, something dangerous and precious all at once. Her hands trembled as she reached for it, and when her fingers touched Sarah's, something broke inside her. All the walls she'd built, all the pretense, all the carefully maintained distance from her past. I'm sorry, she sobbed, the words torn from somewhere deep and raw. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry for everything, for not being there, for being ashamed, for... She looked down at her elaborate dress, at the ballroom full of people who suddenly meant nothing. For all of this. Sarah hesitated, then sat down beside her on the step, her thrift store dress a stark contrast to Madison's designer gown. She told me to tell you something, she said softly. She said, tell Madison that love isn't about the dress you wear or the party you throw. It's about showing up when it's hard, staying when it's easier to leave, and never forgetting where you came from, because that's what makes you who you are. The 2 sisters sat there as the minutes ticked past 7 p.m., past the time when vows should have been exchanged and celebrations begun. Around them, guests began to quietly leave, understanding that they had witnessed something far more significant than a wedding. They had seen the moment when a carefully constructed illusion shattered and revealed something more honest, more painful and infinitely more real beneath. When Madison finally stood, she wasn't thinking about her wedding or her guests or her reputation. She was thinking about a woman who had worked 3 jobs, who had loved fiercely despite impossible circumstances, and who had found a daughter she'd given up only to lose another daughter to shame and ambition. Will you help me change out of this dress? Madison asked Sarah quietly. And then, will you tell me about her? About our mother? About everything I missed? Sarah nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I'd like that." As they walked together toward the bridal suite, Madison noticed her groom still standing at the altar, looking lost and confused. She should have felt something: regret, sadness, concern, but all she felt was an overwhelming sense of finally understanding what mattered. She paused, turned back, and said simply, "I'm sorry. I can't do this today. Maybe not ever. I need to go be with my sister."